Hello, this is Scott Hoy.
And I'm Kyle Miller. Today's episode of the Psychology Talk podcast is from the vaults. We've handpicked some of our favorite and most popular episodes to share with more listeners.
Since we started this podcast, we've been on a mission to better inform clinicians and consumers on topics in mental health. We strive to reduce myths and misconceptions and enlighten you beyond the many memes or sound bites that try to sell you on ways to better your life.
So without further ado, here's an episode from the archives to do just that. So please do your part and take a moment to subscribe, like, and leave a review for us at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, or wherever you're listening in from. That would help us to continue our mission at the Psychology Talk podcast. Welcome to the Chicago Psychology Podcast.
What makes PCIT unique is that it incorporates a live coaching model with the family. So when I'm working with families in PCIT, I like to explain to them that they're really going to learn how to be their child's therapist. So I'm going to be teaching them techniques of behavioral medicine. And instead of a prescription for a pill that they would leave an office with, I'm prescribing a dose of behavioral medicine every day that they're to implement with their child. So I really equate it a lot to medicine. This is something everyone really understands how it works and why it's important.
Down your haunted streets, through your lonely alleys, the feather touch your feet.
On today's episode, Scott and I interview Jessica Mattingly. Jessica is a licensed psychologist in Hersey, Pennsylvania. She's an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral health at Penn State College of Medicine, where she provides outpatient services to youth ages 2 to 18 and their families. Jessica walks us through her life experiences that led to becoming a psychologist, her history of experiences working as a mental health clinician, and her current work as a psychologist using the Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, or PCIT. Jessica describes in detail the history of evidence-based PCIT, how sessions are conducted, the impact PCIT has had on children and their caregivers, and the training and processes to become a certified PCIT therapist. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. We're really excited to hear more about PCIT.
Well, I'm eager to share with you.
All right. Well, let's jump in and tell us a little bit about how you became a psychologist. What was your road to getting here?
So I did my undergraduate studies in music at the Eastman School of Music, which is a conservatory setting. And I was a double major in performance and music education. I really wanted to work within at-risk schools. So inner city schools was a particular interest of mine. And I wanted to be a high school band director.
Okay.
So when I got to the last year of my undergrad and I was full-time in student teaching, I realized I really didn't like it. I loved working with the youth. I loved music. The setting really wasn't compatible for me. Being in the school setting for those long hours was very overstimulating in some different ways for me. And I also felt like I couldn't reach the kids with that high level of need the way I thought I would have been able to through music. So it became a very discouraging environment because for me it was physically hard to tolerate, and then this emotional aspect came into it that it was like, well, I can't even give them what I thought I could through this modality. So then I took a couple years off. I lived in Germany for a couple of years, tried to figure out what I was going to do. And then I got my master's still really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work with kids, and I was still interested in that at-risk population. So I did my master's in counseling and human systems, but I focused on mental health counseling and school counseling.
Okay.
So I got to do practicum placements in different settings, including schools and guidance clinics, guidance offices, and still really didn't like the school setting and started to gravitate more towards teenagers and working with, I had a practicum placement in juvenile detention that I really enjoyed.
Oh.
And then, so when I graduated with my master's, I worked for a year with adults with severe mental illness and started to see this pattern from when I worked in juvenile detention of everyone in the system had histories of trauma, every single one. In juvenile detention, got a screener, and we always screened for trauma, and there was always an event. And all of the adults I worked with in this particular program had trauma histories. And so then I started to become very curious about the impact of trauma on all of these different presentations I was seeing. And that's what pursued me to go back for my doctorate and focus on psychology. I wanted to learn more about the biological bases of these different conditions. And I was still interested in working with the at-risk youth population. The age that I focused on changed over time based on practicum sites that I had and different training opportunities that I took on, and never saw myself working with preschool age children. But now my favorite population to work with is ages 2 through 4 with severe externalizing behaviors.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. Well, I actually worked in Chicago Public Schools as a teacher and a counselor. So as you were talking, I could relate to some of that. And, some of the reason I moved on was also it's hard to make an impact. I can imagine in music setting because you're 30, 40 to 1, and so I do understand working in those at-risk areas. It's hard to reach kids in a lot of different ways when there's that many in front of you, right?
Yes.
Even as a counselor, it was hard because all the paperwork that went along with the job stopped you from actually doing counseling, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now.
Devil in disguise.
Only on Peacock. Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
So, that's a really interesting road in Germany, coming back and getting your doctorate.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did living in Germany for a while, how long were you there, Jessica, and how did it inform you as a person?
So I lived there for 2 years, and I served tables in a couple different restaurants, and I taught English to elementary school teachers who wanted to become certified to teach English. And I also did after-school tutoring for kids.
Wow. Busy 2 years.
Yeah, it was fun. And how has that informed me now? Well, I continued working with youth, and getting to work with kids in another culture was very eye-opening. After-school tutoring is very common there. Almost all of the children go from school to tutoring, and they go through their different subject areas while they're there, and English is one of them. And so I worked with kids as young as 5, and up through in that setting. And it's just interesting to be exposed to a different educational system, even though I wasn't embedded in it. And just to see how things run in another country, it's very fascinating.
Did you notice any, does it help frame universals in education for you more so than someone who's just been trained and experienced the United States as far as teaching, like universal applications of teaching and human interactions, communications?
So I wouldn't say I got that deep into the system. And I really was, the after school tutoring centers, they're not connected to the schools at all. They're independent. And I would be there a few hours, a couple days a week.
Okay.
So all of this kind of led you to getting your doctorate in psychology, and how did you end up with working with the parent-child interaction therapy?
So during one of my practicum placements, I was at a clinic that offered a wide variety of child and family services. And I'm really the kind of person to take on any opportunity that is offered and to see if I like it or not. So I was able to work with kids as young as toddlers in that setting, and all the way up through age 18. And I even was able to work with some adults. And I really started to enjoy the work with that preschool age group. So my first exposure was within a group setting where there was a parent group and a child group that ran at the same time. And these were families where they had lost custody of their children for abuse or neglect. And they were working towards getting more visitation or return to custody, working in that direction towards reunification. So I can't remember the frequency of the group right now. It was so long ago, but I want to say it was maybe twice a week that we ran this group. And the parents would come in and the kids would come in. Usually these kids were in foster care, so the foster parents brought them to the group. And a couple of us would be in with the kids, and the skills that the therapists in that group had taught me to use, little did I know, were drawn from PCIT. I did not know that when they first were teaching me these strategies. And I saw how quickly the parents were able to apply these same tools that we were using with the children, because they would teach the parent while we were working with the kids. And the parents would then, from their group, come into our group and rehearse and practice what they had just learned with our guidance during their interactions with their children. And I started asking more about it, asking the therapists that were supervising me more about these techniques. And they said, they come from this treatment called parent-child interaction therapy. And I'd never heard of it. So one of them sat down with me and did a half-day didactic on it with me. And I became very interested and started delving into the research about it, read everything I could get my hands on, and started to practice it informally. So I hadn't been trained, but it was a setting where they were open to you trying things out, and there wasn't any harm to be done with using these skills with a family. So I started just playing around with the different techniques in my sessions with families, and noticed that even informally, there were a lot of positives that came from these skills and improvements, especially in the relationship between the parents and children. So when I decided that once I graduated, that I was going to go and be formally trained in PCIT. And so in 2011 is when I got trained.
Okay, great. So I'm interested to hear, because I don't know a lot about PCIT, so I would love to, if you could give us a little bit of background on it and tell us what it's all about and how it works.
Yeah, so PCIT stands for Parent-Child Interaction Therapy. It's an evidence-based practice for kids ages 2 through 7. it was originally developed for kids with behavioral difficulties related to diagnoses of ADHD, ODD, and conduct disorder. Since the time of its inception, though, it's really become what we're seeing is a transdiagnostic and cross-cultural treatment model for this age range. Adaptations have been created for kids with every presentation you can really think of in this age range of 2 through 7. So not only externalizing behaviors, but internalizing behaviors. There are adaptations for specific phobias, for separation anxiety, for sexualized behavior problems. There are adaptations for selective mutism, autism, and even toddlers. There's also an adaptation for older children, and it's also been shown that National Childhood Traumatic Stress Network identifies PCIT as a best practice for trauma, even without adaptations.
Oh, wow.
So the treatment is, what makes PCIT unique is that it incorporates a live coaching model with the family. So when I'm working with families in PCIT, I like to explain to them that they're really going to learn how to be their child's therapist. So I'm going to be teaching them techniques of behavioral medicine. And instead of a prescription for a pill that they would leave an office with, I'm prescribing a dose of behavioral medicine every day that they're to implement with their child. So I really equate it a lot to medicine. This is something everyone really understands how it works and why it's important. And what's done is, in the first phase of treatment, the parent learns a set of skills that are based in theories of attachment and social learning. And these skills are child-directed skills, and they're all play-based. So really, in effect, the parent learns play therapy skills to use with their child a little bit each day at home and in the clinic. And these skills are great for decreasing levels of frustration, any feelings of anger or strained nature of the relationship between the parent and child. It's going to warm all that over. It improves things like self-esteem and social skills like turn taking and sharing and waiting. And it's also really great for improving things like attention and concentration. So we'll see kids' attention span even improve over the course of the first phase of treatment.
And what are the length of the phases of treatments? If I can interrupt for a second here, just curious. How long is one phase of treatment? Is it more based on the child's development or ability to take the medication?
So it's that most families can complete a phase of treatment in 4 to 6 weeks. In total, most families, when they come to the clinic weekly and they're practicing daily, can finish treatment in 12 to 20 weeks, 12 to 20 sessions.
Oh, wow. So
each phase is about 4 to 6 weeks, but it's not time limited. It's data driven. So what happens is that in that first phase of treatment, there's a set of skills the parent has to actually master. And we're collecting data on those skills in every session. There's a coding system that's used. So you watch the parent interact with the child before you start coaching them. And you code everything that they're saying to the kid. And there's actually a criteria to meet before passing to phase 2.
Okay.
And then in phase 2, the parent learns behavior management strategies to help increase the rate of compliance with effective commands. They learn how to give commands that are effective, so the child is more likely to listen. They learn how to follow through consistently and in a predictable way, so the child learns very quickly to not test their limits to see if they mean it. And they learn strategies also for implementing things like house rules and managing behavior in public. So all of that's done through, I mentioned the live coaching model. So what happens is the parent and child are actually in a therapy room that's equipped for observation. There's usually a one-way mirror or a live video feed, sometimes both. And the therapist is in the observation room. The parent wears a headset, and you coach the parent in the moment with these. Because I think sometimes what happens, or even a lot of times I even found before doing PCIT, is that you can teach parents all of these strategies without coaching them, but you never get to see them use it. And if they come back and powwow with you and say, oh, this didn't work, or this didn't work, you never got to see them implement it. So there's no way to know if they actually did it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in PCIT, you're seeing the parent in the moment, and you can correct anything before it becomes a bad habit. Mm-hmm. So, and they're getting that direct feedback in the moment.
And when I was reading on your website, it said that there's a two-way mirror. I'm assuming that you're on one side of the mirror,
yes,
and then the family is on the other side. Have you found anything? What I've noticed is that early in therapy, that a lot of times, there's everybody's it's like the honeymoon phase. Everybody's on their best behavior, right? Does the coaching model get instituted later, or have you noticed that things just pop up naturally, or how does it go?
So with kids in that age range, these are very young children, 2 through 7. Mm-hmm. A lot of them totally even forget that I'm around once I leave the room. They're curious about the headset. The older kids, 5 and up, they start to become more like, oh, is she talking to you right now? But the way I explain it to the kids is, so they learn the first time I go in there with the headset that you're coming here to learn how to play nicely together and some new ways to get along and have fun. And while you're here, mom's going to wear this headset so I can talk to her and help her while she plays with you. Okay. But a lot of especially the younger kids, they forget or they don't even notice.
Yeah, they probably haven't they haven't developed object permanence in a lot of ways. Right? A 2-year-old might not know you're there. Right? 3-year-olds,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah. It sounds like it's a very. It sounds extremely structured and brilliantly structured as far as coding and making sure that you can. I am assuming you're looking at language patterns within the parenting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? That sounds pretty intriguing.
The coding system.
Oh, the coding system and what you're looking for and what you're trying to correct.
Sure. So the coding system that's used is called the Dyadic Parent-Child Interaction Coding System, or the DPICS. Mm-hmm. And it's literally everything that is said gets a code to it. We're looking at specific skills we've taught them in the phases of treatment. So in the first phase of treatment, it's those play therapy skills. In the second phase of treatment, it's giving effective commands and following through appropriately. There's mastery criteria for each. And once they meet that criteria, that's a check. So, okay, if you meet the mastery in phase 1, we get to go to phase 2. And then when you meet the mastery in phase 2, we know we're nearing the end of treatment. The other 2 components that have to be in place is that there's a standardized behavior rating scale that's completed in every session. That score has to be within normal limits. And the child has to be complying with effective commands at least 75% of the time within 2 prompts. Those are our graduation criteria, those 3. But the coding system, we're really looking for those positive interactions and those play therapy skills, those child-directed skills. They aren't only verbal skills, even though that's what we're tallying. There's also qualitative aspect to this as well. We want there to be warmth in the interaction. We want there to be positive touch, positive affection between the 2 of them. We want to see the parent expressing enjoyment through tone of voice, nonverbal behaviors. So we are coaching not just the skills, we're coaching all of that too. We're coaching eye contact and smiles and tone of voice and imitating the child's play. So the quality of the parent-child relationship comes into that data as well.
Okay. That's really interesting. And As you were talking, I keep thinking what I've noticed is parents struggle because of their own history and their own trauma. And do you find that, do you do any somatic work with parents to help them? Or do you find that parents struggle with some of these regulation skills themselves?
Oh, absolutely. And that's another component of this in terms of coaching. I get to coach parents on grounding, mindfulness, distracting themselves when things are going awry, and keeping themselves calm, cool, and collect in the face of their child's big emotions.
Okay.
So I will coach parents if one of the skills we teach is selective attention. So when the child's engaging in some high-level disruptive behaviors, and I'm coaching the parent to ignore those behaviors in the moment, I'm also going to coach that parent to take some deep breaths. I'm going to coach them to focus on different things in the room other than the child. I'm going to talk their ear off to keep them distracted from the behaviors and keep them encouraged and focused on the end goal here, that their child learns how to get their attention in a positive way through these moments.
Okay. Yeah. As a parent, I'm also listening to this as a parent, and I'm thinking, wow, because it's hard. It's hard.
It is hard.
Parenting is really hard. So it sounds like a lot of the focus that your work does is on the parents in that coaching model. It is the parents that you're working with, right?
Yeah, the parent is becoming the agent of change in the relationship.
Yeah. And it sounds like learning those skills in real time and having someone kind of supporting you in your ear, to help you do that. That must be really powerful for parents.
Introducing touch-free payments from PayPal, a safe way for your customers to pay. Simply download the PayPal app and display your own unique QR code for your customers to scan. Whether you're a market seller,
I'll take 2 tomatoes and a cucumber,
poodle pamperer, piano tuner, or plumber, signing up to accept touch-free payments for your business is easy. Touch-free QR code payments. Shop safe with PayPal.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
I'm wondering what the rate of continued success is.
That's a good question.
So they have examined PCIT up to 3 years.
Okay.
And after treatment, and have found gains maintain.
Okay.
That in some children who have ADHD, that they'll see a reappearance of disruptive behaviors in school around the first grade, because the idea there, of course, is the demands of academics increase in first grade, and children who do have that neuroatypicality, of course, it's going to be more difficult for them come that year in school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once the academics ramp up, then their behaviors ramp up as well.
Right. However, that increase was not seen in the home for those same children. So, with the continued use of the skills, the gains are maintained, we know, up to 3 years post-treatment.
Is that based on, it sounds like the relationship between parents and child is more solid at home because of the skills learned?
Absolutely. That parent-child relationship is essential for the discipline skills and behavior management to be effective.
Yeah.
If the child doesn't feel calm and secure and safe within that parent-child relationship, when the parent attempts discipline, the child has no reason to believe that that's not going to withdraw from their relationship. So they're going to be more opposed to those limits.
Right.
We calm that down. We heal the relationship. Discipline is much more effective.
Okay. And how often is the treatment? Is it only once a week? Is it 90 minutes? What's the frequency?
It's weekly.
Okay. And is it one session a week?
Yes.
Okay. And is it 60 minutes, 90 minutes?
Yeah, the sessions are about an hour each.
Okay. Okay. So it's a typical therapy session.
Yep.
Okay.
What's it look like from the eyes of a parent who might be interested in attending PCIT? What's the process? What process does it take, Jessica, for them to become involved?
So the first step would be finding a PCIT provider. Okay. And so the list of certified providers can be found at PCIT International's website, which is pcit.org. And that would be the starting place. There are people who have been trained formally in PCIT but chose not to pursue certification. They're a little bit harder to find because they're not advertised anywhere, but they're around. So it's worth, if you can't find anyone on the website, it's worth calling around your local mental health agencies and behavioral health centers to see if they do have anyone trained in PCIT.
Well, I mean, obviously, if Kyle and I were to be interested in the training, would we have to have the same setup, essentially? Or would it be more, we'd have to knock out a part of a wall and put a one-way mirror in or two-way mirror in? And, I mean, is it like that? Or can the principles be, I guess, in a limited fashion, could we use them, say, like any kind of parenting, like Adlerian parenting or some other parenting kind of system, and apply them if we were trained in them in private practice?
So these skills are relevant to even, I teach parents of teenagers these skills in a way that are developmentally appropriate for teenagers. They can be taught to any parent. In terms of using PCIT as a treatment model, it has to be done in the standardized setup. So if you wanted to pursue training, you would have to have the setup, because part of the training requirements is completing 2 cases. So it has to be done in that setup. Now, you don't need to knock out a wall and put in a one-way mirror. Live video feeds are completely okay. And there are a lot of home security systems that are very cheap that can be installed. And even, some of the baby monitors nowadays are really fantastic and can be used. So there are ways to get around not having a one-way mirror.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was actually wondering about that myself, but you could use a webcam or, something
absolutely.
like that.
There's even IPCIT. So they do deliver it through internet-based therapy.
Oh, so that like in-home?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes perfect sense, right?
That would be really, I think that would be even more powerful, because you're actually doing it in the environment, and the therapist isn't even there to influence anything, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the controlled and the treatment?
Exactly.
So I'd be interested to hear your experience in using the IPCIT. Have you done that before?
Oh, no, I have never done. I've never done any internet delivery of services.
Okay. All of yours are in person.
Yes.
Are there any therapists that actually go into the home and do that?
Yeah, so there's home-based PCIT.
Okay.
I worked in private practice for a couple of years, and for some families I went into the home to do some coaching sessions to help them generalize their skills a little bit better, because we had come to a certain point in treatment where I would have thought the parents would feel more confident about the skills, more empowered, and they were still really hesitant and describing difficulties at home that had disappeared in the clinic. So I wanted to get, I liked that flexibility, because I'd be able to go into the home and say, okay, well, let's, switch the, area here. or where you do special time. Let's minimize the distractions here. So just to get a feel of what their living environment is like, and then I can help them within their natural setting. So
Yeah, that's great. And I'm also interested from the parent perspective, because from my approach when I work with children, I always feel like the parents they're the key to the child's success, right? Like you said, if the child can't self-regulate, the parent has to be that for them until they are able to. What's been your experience with? Do you have a lot of parents go into individual therapy as well while they're doing PCIT, or is the process itself really meaningful to them and repairs the relationship? How have you found that?
So I've seen both. I've definitely had families where I've encouraged the parents to seek out their own services. Some of them already, come in already having their own. It really depends on their own background. I have others that this is the only treatment they're involved in. I will say we do have evidence that it is helpful for maternal depression, because in PCIT we are using a lot of positive reinforcement with the parent. That's one of our techniques as a coach, one of the coaching techniques. And so these parents who, especially for, the kids who PCIT was designed for, with these kids with extreme behavior problems, a lot of these parents hear all the time that they're awful parents. They need to get their kid under control. What's wrong with you? Why don't you just slap them? X, Y, and Z. They're getting criticized from family members, the kids' teachers, daycare providers, and not getting any helpful suggestions or even support. So PCIT may be the first time these parents are ever hearing great things about them.
Okay. So you see the progress in them a lot because they are getting that affirmation and validation and positive feedback themselves. Mm-hmm. That in part is a growth for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, obviously, this has a lot to do. You mentioned attachment theory, and there's a lot of attachment theory principles involved in PCIT. It must have an effect on the parents' own, working models of attachment, and it must evoke a lot of strengths from them, and maybe some of their more painful aspects of their own attachment issues, if they have them. Is that worked through, or is that just referred out to another therapist or someone in-house who's not doing the PCIT with them?
So PCIT is very structured treatment model, and of course we're not going to disregard anything that comes up in the treatment process. However, PCIT is not about those things. And so we would provide that support to the parent, and link them to whatever they would need in order to do that. As a PCIT therapist, I really keep my role as a PCIT therapist, and I'm not going to do individual therapy work with the parent. I might do some supportive sessions with the parent without the child if I don't think it's something that really needs ongoing therapy. If it's something that there's just a stressful thing going on with the family, and CheckIn has been taking too long in our PCIT sessions, which takes away from the child's treatment. Okay. So there are ways to, if I see a consistent pattern of, wow, our check-ins in session have been running too long and we're not getting the coaching time in that's needed, that's a cue to me. There's something going on that needs to be attended to more. Yeah.
And so you have that's another thing that I'm really interested in is the check-in section. Is that meant to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Is there
So 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. During that time, I have the parent fill out the behavior rating scale about how the child's behavior has been over the past week while I look at their homework sheet. I review anything that's on their homework sheet that they've written down, and I address any concerns that came up along the week that they've put on their homework sheet.
Okay.
Then we just talk about, how the skills have been going. I also want to check in about any stressors the parent has had outside of parenting.
Okay.
So I want to know, like how's work been going, or how's your life outside of being a parent, and see so I can be cued into any potential stressors that are impacting the parent's involvement or even being able to do the home practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we go right into the coaching. And then we do a coaching, and then the last 5 or so minutes, we review the session together. They get to see their progress on a progress sheet of their skill development, as well as the score on the behavior rating scale on a graph.
Okay.
So they can see, so over time, you start to see as their skills improve, that behavior rating is coming down, and they're able to directly make that connection between their skill development and improvement on behaviors.
I'm curious, Jessica, is there a criterion for exclusion for PCIT? Are there some situations that need to be redirected elsewhere first, and then perhaps if those situations in the family unit have been taken care of, they might come back, or is there an exclusion criteria for PCIT?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So PCIT is not going to work for children and families with an inconsistent living situation or an unstable living situation. This can be things like homelessness, even domestic violence, and parental substance abuse. These are the kinds of things we want to be screening for. The other thing would be severe mental illness within the parent. And then we also, if the child is, so I had mentioned earlier there are adaptations for older children, but if someone isn't trained in those adaptations or has never used them, so like for me, I'll see older kids if there's no physical aggression. So they can be defiant, they can be oppositional, but the physical aggression, I don't feel comfortable training parents with managing that with older kids. So for me, that's an exclusionary criteria for an older kid. We want to make sure if there are any developmental delays that child is still a developmental age of 2 through 7. So their receptive language should be at least 24 months.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you do that testing up front with each individual child or no?
Not unless there's a concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are toddler adaptations. So if the expressive language isn't quite there with a younger kid I'm seeing, I'll bring in some of the toddler adaptations to assist with that lack of language development.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free. Upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
Well, it sounds like a really, it's very interesting. And I can see how, as you were talking, there are times where I'm thinking, I guess I think about my own experience and think about the people that I've worked with and how this would be helpful with the parents and the children. That live coaching model seems like it would be it would add another level of effectiveness because you're in the moment with them. Like you said, that affirmation of developing the skills. Not to mention, I'm interested how it goes when you share the data that you're collecting. Is that shared with parents and child at the same time? Parents first and then child, and because I can see the power behind both parent and child seeing those numbers, like the behaviors go down and the results go up.
The parents love seeing it. Of course, that helps them know what we're doing is working. Mm-hmm. It can be easy to lose sight of the big picture when you're in the trenches with a kid with behavior issues,
Sure.
So to be able to see those small changes over time really keeps parents motivated and engaged in treatment. The kids, they're usually playing while we're going through the data.
Okay. Yeah. When the children are older, do you share that with them?
We'll talk about it more casually. So with the older child adaptations, you actually meet briefly with the child one-on-one before bringing the parent into session. And so I may talk about things like that, like, last time I saw you, Mom said things were going really good at school. I wonder how it's been since I last saw you. Just see what the kid's perception as well.
So you have a parent check-in and then a child check-in, and then you do the work?
With the older kid, it's a little different where I'll have, you meet with the older child briefly without the parent while the parent completes the rating scale. Then you bring the parent in and do check in with the parent. So the idea there is as kids get older, if you're meeting, if this is just the therapist and working with the parent, that child's going to start to view the therapist and parent as like a team against them. So we want the child bought into this process as well once they're at that developmental age to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Go
ahead.
What's the process, Jessica, for the training? I mean, obviously you have to have hours and hours of the theoretical and the actual experiential aspect of the model. And do those two cases, but what's the coaching like, the one-on-one coaching and supervision from the PCIT team?
So if you do your training through a master trainer or a level 2 trainer, these are people that can train like either regionally or internationally. It's a 40-hour workshop. So they usually host a 5-day workshop somewhere and you travel there. The 40 hours is didactics, hands-on skill development. There are different skills you have to pass at certain levels of you have to meet mastery of the skills that the parents learn. You have to demonstrate, reliable scoring of the behavior rating scale, a certain level of inter-rater reliability with the coding system. So you're working on all of this during that week. And you're learning coaching techniques, and you are role playing. It's like speed role playing, like every 5 minutes, your therapist, parent, or kid just rotate through all the roles. So you get the experience of wearing the headset. You get the experience of being coached and doing it.
Okay.
And you get the experience on the kid's end. What is it like to be on the receiving end of these skills as a kid too, as well as in the parent role?
Okay.
That's great. That sounds really inclusive. And, I think it would help your intuition as you're using it later on, especially to get the child's perspective like that.
Yeah. And then ongoing consultation. So then for a year, you have biweekly consultation calls with your trainer on your cases. And you have to complete 2 beginning to end. And then you can then sit for certification.
Cool.
Okay. And how long is the whole process if you're becoming certified in it?
It takes about a year.
Oh, it's only a year. Okay.
To complete everything. It really depends on your cases. So it's those 2 cases beginning to end that can be tricky to get especially if you're in a setting that has a high dropout rate.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been really interesting. Scott, do you have any other questions?
Well, I think you already told us where people can find out about this, but you could just kind of refresh our memory at the end of the show for people who have sat through our entire conversation. Jessica, where can people find out more about PCIT, which is really cool and an excellent evidence-based practice for child and parent interactions?
Yes, PCIT International has a wonderful website at PCIT.org. You can find a list of local certified providers there, as well as parent resources, and professionals interested in becoming certified therapists can find information there about trainings as well.
Okay. Is there anything that we can share about you? Do you have any upcoming events, trainings, things that are what's going on with you?
So I have been in my current position since August 1st, so it's fairly new. So I've got my clinics established now, and I do PCIT clinic 2 days a week. And right now I do have a wait list of at least 3 months. Wow. So I do have plans. So since I've just started there, I'm the only PCIT therapist. So I am planning to train a cohort of therapists late spring, early summer, hopefully increasing access by the end of the summer.
Okay. Is that level 1 that you would be working on?
So I'm a level 1 trainer, which means I can train anyone at my agency. So the training is a little different when you work with a level 1 trainer versus a level 2 or a master trainer, because all of our training is in-house. So those therapists, once they're done training with me, can choose to sit for certification or not.
Okay. Great. Well, this has been great information. I really appreciate you coming on our podcast and talking to us and talking to our audience. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? And how can people find you if they'd like to find out more information about you, Jessica?
So I have my own website, jessicamattingly.com. And all of my contact information is on there in terms of how to schedule an evaluation with me. That would be the first step in getting started. So there is a wait right now to get in to see me. However, if there's someone local who is needing PCIT resources, they're happy to reach out through there, and I can send them local resources as well.
Okay. Sounds great.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on. I would love to have you on again sometime to hear more about the other approaches that you're trained in.
Yeah, sure, anytime.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
No problem.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
We appreciate you tuning in. Please do us a favor and give us a great review on your favorite podcast streaming service. It would help us out immensely. This podcast is for entertainment and informative purposes only. If you need a mental health professional, please seek one out. All material is copyright by Chicago Psychology Podcast. Music is by Serenati.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now.
Devil in disguise.
Only on Peacock.